Hello and welcome to Legal Briefs. I'm Attorney Thien-Vu Hogan, and today I will show you the only way to do outlining right. Okay, so everybody knows what outlining is and why we do it. It's the process where you take everything you learned from the whole semester and put it together in a framework to show how pieces fit together. I'll show you tips on how to start putting one together in a bit, but it was the most frustrating part about law school for me. The professor throws bits and pieces of the subject matter here and there, and then you have to figure out how everything works together. It's like if I was teaching a class on how to bake the perfect French baguette and I started the class out with, let's talk about humidity. You would expect for me to start out the class by talking about the ingredients you needed, what temperature to turn on the oven, and then the instructions on how to make dough. Instead, you would look at me puzzled as I launch into this half-an-hour discussion on humidity. But that is exactly how law school is. You have to figure out the reason I was talking about humidity is because humidity levels could affect the amount of time it takes for the dough to rise. So why do professors do this? Remember, anyone can just memorize and regurgitate the law, but lawyering requires more than just knowing laws. It's the thought and process behind how things work. So what is the key? The key is to start outlining before the first day of class. This will give you the big picture overview that the professor often doesn't give you. I'm going to show you an example of how to start an outline when you haven't learned anything in the class in a bit. And I'm not talking about completing a whole outline. I'm just talking about starting one. Many students will wait until 2 weeks before the final exam to start outlining. Many are scrambling and figuring out the course when at that time it should be spent memorizing and doing practice exams. If you start early, you should have your outline completed by the last day of class, and then all you need to do is start doing sample exams. Okay, so how do we do this? Let me show you with the baguette example. So first of all, here is the full recipe of how to make French baguettes. Okay, this is what you would expect to know at the end of a bread making course. But before you process all that information, you can break it down into a skeleton of 4 parts. When you break it down like this, it's fairly simple. You get the overall picture of what is needed. You got the ingredients, the instructions, and then the instructions can further be broken down into making the dough, shaping the dough, and baking the dough. And as you learn more about parts of the recipe, you fill in details. And where did our humidity discussion fit into all of this? You would figure out that it would affect all parts where you were waiting for the dough to rise. Okay, enough about bread. So you will be doing this same thing to every subject in law school. So let's get into a real law school subject. Let's start with the most frustrating law school subject to me, civil procedure. My civil procedure started with the Erie Doctrine. Yes, the Erie Doctrine. So I learned what the Erie Doctrine was about. I read and memorized the Erie Quartet cases, the main objectives of the Erie decision. But my gosh, what did this have to do with anything, and how does it fit into anything? And why do I need to know all this, and how would it be tested? I can memorize, and memorize, but this is not the objective of law school. Before I show you an easy sample of starting an outline, remember what's critical in getting that edge in class is knowing where things fit in the framework of things. So the first thing you need to do in every class before day 1 of the class is to get a skeleton of the outline. How do you do that? You either get the professor's syllabus of the course, or you look at the table of contents of your civil procedure book, or you can even get a sample civil procedure outline online. But what you need to do is reduce it down into a skeleton so you get an overall big picture of the course. And here is an example of a civil procedure outline. I basically took the main headings in a civil procedure textbook, table of contents, and I wrote it out. This way you have a framework of the course. You then will want to fill in the sub-issues. The sub-issues were again taken from the subheadings in the civil procedure textbook table of contents. Once you have that, before you start your course, you will start plugging in what you have learned at the end of each class. Here's an example of where I would plug in all of what I learned about the Erie Doctrine. The key is to start before your classes start and fill in your outline at the end of each lecture. As I got used to this, I started to actually take notes in my skeleton of the outline so that by the last lecture of each course, I would have my outline filled out and it was done. This allowed me time to focus on practice exams. So my outlines were always on average 25 pages long. Don't let anybody tell you that it should be less or more than that. How much information you need to put down for you to understand things is up to you and your learning style. If you need pictures and graphs, add them in. The bottom line is to understand the framework and how each issue falls into place. All right, I hope this helped you. Now go get an edge in that class and start that outline. Good luck.